September 17, 1944, 19,000 feet above the Rhine Valley. Squadron Leader Colin Hodgkinson lines up his Spitfire Mark 9 behind a Focke-Wulf 190 at 320 miles per hour. His right eye sees nothing but darkness. His left eye, the one doctors said would never fly again, tracks the enemy through a gun sight he shouldn't be able to use. 200 yards. The German pilot brakes hard left. Hodgkinson rolls inverted, pulls 4 Gs through the turn, and squeezes the trigger. 8 Browning machine guns unleash 160 rounds per second. The FW-190's tail section disintegrates. But here's what makes this impossible. Hodgkinson lost depth perception 2 years ago, and depth perception is everything in aerial combat. Rewind to July 1942, Colin Hodgkinson was already a decorated RAF pilot with 12 confirmed victories when a training accident changed everything. His Spitfire Mark 5 clipped a hangar at RAF Hornchurch at 140 miles per hour. The impact shattered his right eye socket and severely damaged his left retina. 3 surgeons at the Royal Victoria Hospital examined him. Their verdict: permanent loss of the right eye, 60% vision in the left, complete loss of depth perception. The medical board's recommendation was immediate: grounded permanently. No exceptions. Depth perception isn't optional for fighter pilots. It's the difference between a 50-yard firing solution and a collision at 600 miles per hour closing speed. But Hodgkinson had spent 2 years mastering the Spitfire's handling characteristics at every altitude and airspeed combination. He knew something the doctors didn't understand. Here's the physics problem Hodgkinson faced. Normal human vision uses binocular depth perception. Your brain calculates distance by comparing the slightly different images from each eye. At 300 yards, that gives you accuracy within 3 feet. Crucial when you're firing 8 machine guns with a convergence pattern set for 250 yards, where all bullet streams intersect at a killing zone just 6 feet wide. Miss that convergence point by 20 feet, and 70% of your rounds pass harmlessly around the target. But Hodgkinson discovered something during months of rehabilitation: motion parallax. When you're moving at 350 miles per hour, objects at different distances shift position relative to each other at different rates. A target at 200 yards moves faster across your canopy than mountains 10 miles away. Your brain can calculate distance from that motion difference if you train it. Hodgkinson spent 8 months teaching himself to judge range using only motion cues and the angular size of enemy aircraft silhouettes he'd memorized. The question was whether split-second combat would give him time to use those calculations. March 1943. While officially grounded, Hodgkinson convinced a sympathetic flight instructor at RAF Tangmere to let him fly administrative flights, ferry missions that didn't involve combat. But Hodgkinson wasn't just flying. He was conducting systematic experiments at altitudes between 5,000 and 25,000 feet. He'd approach practice targets painted on the ground, estimating range using only motion and angular size. At 10,000 feet, traveling 280 miles per hour, a 40-foot target 500 yards ahead, sub-10's exactly 4.6 degrees of visual arc. Hodgkinson memorized 127 different combinations of altitude, airspeed, and target size. He practiced snapshots, rolling inverted, pulling 5 Gs through a half loop, acquiring a target in under 2 seconds, and calling out estimated range. His instructor would verify with a rangefinder. After 4 months, Hodgkinson's monocular ranging was accurate to within 30 yards at combat distances. Still not as good as binocular vision, but combined with tracer feedback where you see your bullets going, it might be enough. The real test would come when someone was shooting back. June 1943, Hodgkinson requested a reevaluation before the RAF Medical Board. The 3 doctors who'd grounded him were skeptical. Standard tests showed his right eye still completely blind, left eye vision at 65%, marginally better, but still below the 80% minimum for fighter pilots. Then Hodgkinson proposed an unconventional test. Put him in a Spitfire with an evaluator pilot flying chase. Set up aerial targets at various ranges. Have him call out distances before checking with instruments. The board agreed, expecting failure. At 15,000 feet over the English Channel, they positioned barrage balloons at 200, 350, and 500 yards. Hodgkinson called each range within 25 yards. They tried it at different altitudes and speeds. Same result. The evaluator pilot's report noted, his monocular ranging technique is unorthodox but demonstrably effective. The board cleared him for combat operations with one condition: he'd be monitored in every engagement. One mistake, and he'd be grounded permanently. August 12, 1943, Hodgkinson's first combat mission since the accident. 611 Squadron scrambles from RAF Hornchurch to intercept Focke-Wulf 190 fighter bombers attacking Dover at 12,000 feet. Hodgkinson flies as Red 3, third position in the lead flight. Intelligence reports 8 FW-190s with fighter escort. As they climb through 8,000 feet at 280 miles per hour, his wingman radios, Red 3, confirm your combat ready. It's not standard radio protocol. They're checking if he'll abort. Hodgkinson's response, Red 3 ready. At 11,500 feet, the formation breaks through a cloud layer. 2 miles ahead, the FW-190s are in a loose finger four formation, diving toward Dover's harbor. The German aircraft, each powered by a 1,700 horsepower BMW radial engine, can outrun the Spitfire in a straight dive. Hodgkinson's squadron leader calls, Red flight, bounce from above, watch for escorts. This is the tactical scenario Hodgkinson trained for, but training targets don't maneuver at 400 miles per hour while firing 20mm cannon rounds back at you. The Spitfires dive from 12,000 feet, accelerating to 380 miles per hour. Hodgkinson selects the trailing FW-190, painted in standard Luftwaffe gray-green camouflage with yellow nose markings. Range, 600 yards. Too far. He needs 250 yards for an effective burst. The German pilot spots the threat and brakes hard right, pulling 6 Gs, a maneuver that would black out an unprepared pilot. Hodgkinson anticipates the turn, rolling 90 degrees to maintain pursuit geometry. His monocular vision forces him to rely on angular size. The FW-190's wingspan is 34 feet, and at 400 yards it subtends approximately 5 degrees across his gun sight. He's trained his brain to convert that angle to distance instantly. But combat adds chaos. The target is rolling, diving, and jinking unpredictably. Hodgkinson closes to 350 yards. His finger moves to the firing button. Then the FW-190's wingman appears from above, rolling inverted into a firing position 800 yards behind Hodgkinson. His wingman radios, brake, left now. Hodgkinson snaps into a 7G left brake, the hardest turn a Spitfire Mark 9 can sustain without stalling. His vision tunnels, gray creeping in from the edges as blood drains from his head at 7 times normal gravity. But his one functioning eye stays locked on the horizon reference point. At 340 miles per hour, the Spitfire's turn radius is 1,100 feet, tight enough to reverse inside the attacking FW-190's firing solution. Tracer rounds, 20mm cannon shells glowing orange, streak past his right wing just 15 feet away, each round traveling at 2,500 feet per second. The German pilot fires 60 rounds in a 2-second burst. All miss. Hodgkinson completes the break, now facing the enemy aircraft head-on at a combined closing speed of 680 miles per hour. This is where monocular vision becomes an advantage. In a head-on pass, there's no depth to judge, only angles. The FW-190 grows larger in his windscreen. 800 yards, 600 yards, 400 yards. Both pilots will fire simultaneously, or both will die. 300 yards. The FW-190's yellow-nose spinner fills Hodgkinson's gun sight. In a head-on pass, you have a 1-second window before the geometry collapses. Fire too early, your rounds fall short. Fire too late, collision is inevitable. Hodgkinson's finger tightens on the firing button. His 8 Browning 303 machine guns unleash 160 rounds per second, 1,980 bullets in total before the pass ends. The FW-190 fires simultaneously, 2 20mm cannons and 2 7.92 mortar machine guns. Orange and white tracers illuminate the space between aircraft. 200 yards. Hodgkinson's rounds impact the FW-190's engine cowling. Sparks and gray smoke erupt from the BMW radial. 100 yards. The German pilot tries to roll away. Too late. Both aircraft flash past each other with just 20 feet of separation. So close, Hodgkinson sees the pilot's face through the canopy. The FW-190 trails heavy smoke, diving away toward France. First victory. But 4 German aircraft remain, and Hodgkinson's ammunition counter shows 60%. Depleted. Over the next 4 months, Hodgkinson flew 23 combat missions. He developed a tactical system specifically designed for monocular combat. Rule 1. Avoid deflection shots, firing at aircraft crossing your nose, where depth perception matters most. Instead, position for stern chases, where the target grows predictably larger, making range estimation reliable. Rule 2. Use tracers as active feedback. His Spitfire carried 1 tracer round for every 4 standard rounds. When tracers fell short, he knew to close 50 yards. When they overshot, he backed off. His brain learned to process this feedback loop in fractions of a second. Rule 3. Exploit the Spitfire's superior turn performance. The Mark 9 could sustain 5.5 Gs indefinitely at combat speeds, while the FW-190 struggled above 5 Gs before losing energy. In turning fights, Hodgkinson's monocular vision didn't handicap him. The enemy aircraft stayed in predictable geometric relationships. Squadron intelligence officers noticed something unusual. Hodgkinson's ammunition efficiency was 40% higher than squadron average. Most pilots fired 2,000 rounds per kill. Hodgkinson averaged 1,200 rounds. His forced discipline on range estimation made him more accurate, not less. December 3, 1943, Hodgkinson's 16th mission. 611 Squadron escorts B-17 bombers returning from Antwerp, Belgium. At 21,000 feet, the temperature is minus 30 Celsius, cold enough to freeze moisture in gun barrels. 12 Spitfires fly top cover, while 48 B-17s lumber below at 180 miles per hour, several trailing smoke from flak damage. German radar has tracked the formation. Intelligence warns. Expect fighter interception. Abbeville boys. The Luftwaffe's elite JG-26 squadron flying FW-190A6s, each armed with 4 20mm cannons instead of the standard 2. At 21,500 feet, Hodgkinson spots them first. 8 FW-190s diving from 25,000 feet at 450 miles per hour, using altitude advantage for speed. They're targeting the damaged bombers. Each B-17 carries 10 crew members. The German formation splits into 2 4-ship elements. The lead Spitfires turn to intercept the first element. That leaves 4 FW-190s diving toward the bomber's vulnerable rear quarter, where the B-17's tail. Guns have a 60-degree blind spot. Hodgkinson radios, Red 3 engaging rear element. His squadron leader responds, negative Red 3, maintain formation. But Hodgkinson is already rolling inverted into a split S dive. Hodgkinson's Spitfire accelerates to 420 miles per hour in a near vertical dive, descending 3,000 feet in 8 seconds. The four FW-190s are 100 yards ahead, closing on a damaged B-17 trailing from the main formation. The bomber's tail gunner fires desperate bursts. 50 caliber tracers arcing toward the Germans, but falling short at 800 yards. The lead FW-190 opens fire at 400 yards with his 4 MG-151 cannons. Orange explosions ripple across the B-17's left wing. Hodgkinson pulls out of his dive at 18,000 feet, 600 yards behind the trailing German fighter. His airspeed, 380 miles per hour. The FW-190, 420 miles per hour. The geometry is wrong. He's too slow to close before the Germans destroy the bomber. But Hodgkinson knows the Spitfire's engine performance curves by memory. The Merlin 66 engine produces maximum power at 18,000 feet, exactly his current altitude. He firewalled the throttle, engaging emergency boost pressure, 9 pounds above normal. The Merlin screams, producing 1,720 horsepower. The Spitfire accelerates 390 miles per hour, 410 miles per hour. Range closes 500 yards, 450 yards. The FW-190 pilot is focused forward on the bomber, unaware of the threat behind him. 350 yards. Hodgkinson's gun sight centers on the FW-190's tail section. He fires a 1-second burst, 160 rounds. Tracers show his rounds hitting low. The emergency boost has changed his aircraft's nose-up trim angle, throwing off his aim point. He adjusts instinctively, walking the tracers up the enemy's fuselage. Sparks cascade along the FW-190's spine. The German pilot brakes hard left, but at 420 miles per hour, his turn radius is 2,200 feet, twice what it would be at combat maneuvering speed. Hodgkinson stays inside the turn, his one eye tracking the angular motion across his canopy. He learned this during rehabilitation. Monocular vision actually processes angular motion slightly faster than binocular vision. There's no stereoscopic processing delay. 280 yards. Perfect firing range. He squeezes off a 3-second burst, 480 rounds. The FW-190's right wing root explodes in orange flame as cannon ammunition detonates. The aircraft rolls inverted and enters a flat spin. Hodgkinson doesn't watch. He's already selecting the next target. The damaged B-17 is still flying, but 3 FW-190s remain in the attack. The remaining 3 FW-190 pilots recognize the threat. They break off the bomber attack and turn toward Hodgkinson, a classic 3 versus 1 situation that doctrine says is unwinnable. Their plan is simple. 1 engages from the front to fix his attention. 2 maneuver for killing shots from the flanks. It's called the Schwarm tactic, and it's brutally effective. But there's one problem with their plan. They assume Hodgkinson will react like a normal pilot and run. He doesn't. Instead, he turns directly into the lead fighter, accepting the head-on engagement. The 2 aircraft close at 760 miles per hour combined speed. Both pilots fire simultaneously at 400 yards. Hodgkinson's 8 machine guns against the Germans' 4 20mm cannons. The FW-190's shells are more powerful. Each 20mm round hits with 15 times the kinetic energy of a 303 bullet. But Hodgkinson's volume of fire is higher, 160 rounds per second versus 60. It's a mathematical trade. His massive bullets against the Germans' heavy punch. Orange tracers fill the air. A 20mm shell explodes against Hodgkinson's left wingtip, tearing off 3 feet of metal. His Spitfire shudders but stays controllable. His rounds hammer the FWU-190's cockpit canopy. The German aircraft snap rolls right and dives away, trailing glycol coolant, a sign of mortal damage. Two enemies left, now maneuvering behind him. Two FW-190s position themselves 800 yards behind Hodgkinson, one high right, one low left. Classic pincer attack. If he breaks toward either threat, the other gets a firing solution. Standard evasive doctrine says dive for the deck, trade altitude for speed, try to escape. But Hodgkinson calculates something different. His Spitfire, even with wing damage, can sustain a 5G turn indefinitely. The FW-190s carrying external fuel tanks can't exceed 4.5 Gs without stalling. He pulls back on the stick, rolling into a climbing spiral, 5.5 Gs at 280 miles per hour, turning radius of 900 feet. The horizon rotates, sky, ground, sky, ground. His damaged left wing creates asymmetric lift. The Spitfire wants to roll right, forcing him to hold constant left aileron pressure. But the maneuver works. The first FW-190 tries to follow, pulls 5 Gs, stalls at the top of the climb. His nose drops. The second German pilot, more experienced, recognizes the trap and levels off, waiting for Hodgkinson to run out of airspeed. But Hodgkinson isn't trying to escape. He's maneuvering the enemy aircraft into his monocular vision's optimal firing geometry, stern chase, no deflection, pure angular tracking. At the top of the third spiral rotation, 18,500 feet, Hodgkinson's airspeed drops to 140 miles per hour, 15 miles per hour above stall speed. The remaining German pilot waiting below sees the opportunity and climbs to intercept. He's patient, disciplined, probably a veteran, but patience has a cost. Closure time. Hodgkinson uses those 4 seconds to complete one more spiral rotation, bleeding off just enough speed to drop inside the climbing FW-190's turn radius. The geometry reverses. Suddenly Hodgkinson is behind and above at 400 yards, optimal stern chase position. His monocular vision excels here. The FW-190's angular size increases predictably as range closes. 350 yards, 300 yards. The German pilot realizes his mistake and brakes hard right, but he's climbing through 17,000 feet at only 210 miles per hour. Too slow for aggressive maneuvering. Hodgkinson follows the brake, his one eye tracking the target's angular motion with practiced precision. At 250 yards, he fires a 4-second burst, 640 rounds. The FW-190's left wing disintegrates, third victory, but his ammunition counter shows 20% remaining, and his fuel gauge reads 40 minutes of combat fuel left. Hodgkinson reforms with the bomber formation, now 80 miles from the English coast. His Spitfire is battle damaged, 3 feet of left wing missing, dozens of metal panels riddled with 7.9mm bullet holes, hydraulic pressure fluctuating. But he saved the B-17 and its 10-man crew. The bomber's pilot radios. Red 3, thanks for the help back there. Radio discipline says respond with tactical brevity. Hodgkinson keys his mic. That's the job. But there is a cost. That night at RAF Hornchurch, Hodgkinson's one functioning eye aches, the strain of processing monocular combat information for 47 minutes of continuous engagement. Medical officers note his left eye shows signs of increased intraocular pressure. They recommend grounding for 3 days. Hodgkinson agrees to 2. His combat record now shows 3 confirmed victories using monocular vision. The pilots who initially doubted him now study his tactics. Squadron Intelligence compiles his techniques into a training document. Monocular combat operations, compensatory tactics for reduced depth perception. But 2 victories mean little. The doctors cleared him for 5 missions to prove his system works. He needs 2 more confirmed kills, or the medical board will ground him permanently on safety grounds. 9 months later, September 17th, 1944, the date from our opening scene. Operation Market Garden. Allied paratroopers are dropping into Holland, requiring air cover against Luftwaffe fighters. Hodgkinson, now promoted to squadron leader of 611 Squadron, leads 8 Spitfires on patrol over the Rhine Valley at 19,000 feet. His left eye has held up through 87 combat missions. His personal score, 4 confirmed victories, all using monocular vision. Today's mission brief warns of aggressive German fighter resistance. JG-26 and JG-3 are defending the Rhine corridor with approximately 40 aircraft. At 15 to 20 hours, radar control vectors Hodgkinson's formation toward enemy contacts. Bandits, 12 o'clock, 8 miles, altitude 18,000, climbing. Hodgkinson spots them at 6 miles, a formation of 6 FWW-120s and 4 BF-109Gs. The Germans have altitude advantage and numbers. Standard doctrine says wait for reinforcements. But the paratroopers below are vulnerable, and reinforcements are 15 minutes away. Hodgkinson radios his flight. Red flight attacking. Stay in pairs. Watch your 6. This engagement will determine whether his monocular combat system truly works against elite German pilots, or whether the doctors were right about permanent grounding. The formations merge at 300 miles per hour closing speed. Hodgkinson selects a BF-109G painted in mottled gray-green camouflage, a Gustav variant with a 1,475 horsepower Daimler-Benz engine. The Messerschmitt pilot rolls into a split S, diving toward the Rhine at 390 miles per hour. Hodgkinson follows, his Spitfire accelerating to 420 miles per hour. Range, 500 yards. The 109 pilot is skilled, using vertical maneuvers to maintain energy. They dive through 15,000 feet, 12,000 feet, 8,000 feet. The ground rushes up at 4,000 feet per minute. At 5,000 feet, the German pulls out hard, 7 Gs. Most pilots would black out. Hodgkinson pulls matching Gs, his one eye maintaining visual contact through peripheral vision, while his central vision grays. The BF-109 levels at 2,000 feet, racing across Dutch farmland at 380 miles per hour. Range closes, 400 yards, 350 yards, 300 yards. Hodgkinson's monocular vision processes the shrinking range through practiced angular calculations. 280 yards. He fires a 6-second burst. 960 rounds, nearly his entire remaining ammunition. Tracers walk across the Messerschmitt's fuselage and engine. Smoke pours from the cowling. The German pilot jettisons his canopy and rolls inverted. At 2,500 feet, he bails out, his parachute deploying just 800 feet above the ground. 5th victory. The medical board's requirement is met. Colin Hodgkinson has proven that depth perception, while important, isn't absolutely essential if you're willing to rebuild every combat instinct from scratch.